You laid it all out. Every fact lined up. Every reason solid. You were calm, you were clear, and the other person looked you in the eye and got more certain they were right. Not less, more. You walked away wondering what you did wrong. The answer is probably nothing. The problem wasn't your logic, it was the shape of what you were doing. There's a feeling that comes after those conversations. Not just frustration, something quieter. A suspicion that maybe reaching people you care about isn't about being right, or being clearer, or finding better words. That maybe the whole approach is wrong. That suspicion is worth following. About 2,400 years ago, a man in Athens developed a reputation for being one of the most infuriating people you could meet. He wasn't a general. He didn't hold office. He had no official power whatsoever. What he had was a method, a way of talking to people that left them, against their will, examining ideas they had held without question for years. Some loved him for it. Enough hated him that they eventually voted to execute him. His name was Socrates, and the thing he understood about changing a mind is still, today, the most underused insight in any conversation. Here is what he understood. When you assert something, the other person's mind does one of two things: it agrees or it defends. That's it. Those are the only two modes available to a mind receiving a claim. And defense is the default. Not because people are stubborn, though sometimes they are, because the mind treats an incoming assertion the way the body treats a shove. It braces. It pushes back. The harder you push, the harder it holds. This isn't a character flaw in the people who frustrate you. Psychologists call it reactance, the instinct to resist when we feel our freedom of thought is under pressure, and Jack Brem, who first described it in the 1960s, found that it fires before the conscious mind has even evaluated what's being said. You feel the pressure of someone trying to move you, and something in you refuses to move. The logic doesn't get a hearing, the resistance comes first. So if you're wondering why your perfectly reasonable case made the other person dig in harder, that's why. The shape of the thing triggered the defense before the substance had a chance. What Socrates did was find the one shape that doesn't trigger the defense. He asked questions, not rhetorical ones dressed up as questions, the kind that announce their own answer before the other person opens their mouth. Real ones, genuine ones. Questions that handed the other person the wheel of their own thinking and said, "You drive." Picture a man in the Athenian marketplace, someone who has built his whole identity around the idea that courage means never retreating, never yielding, never showing weakness. He holds this view the way you hold a stone in a closed fist, tight. Socrates doesn't challenge it. He asks about it. What would you call a soldier, he might say, who holds his position when retreating would save his men? The man answers. Then Socrates asks something else, and something else. Each question draws only on what the man already believes, and slowly, without anyone pushing anyone, the man finds that his own answers have led him somewhere he didn't expect. The conclusion feels discovered, not delivered. It feels like his. That's the thing. An idea you reach yourself sticks in a way one handed to you never does. The insight belongs to the person who had it. You can feel the difference in your own experience, the moment something clicked versus the moment someone told you you were wrong. One of those stays. The other breeds quiet resentment, or polite nods, or the argument picking up again next week in a different room. You can't manufacture genuine understanding for someone from the outside. You can only create the conditions for them to arrive there themselves. That is what a good question does. It creates the conditions. Think back to the last time something genuinely shifted for you. not when someone corrected you, when you suddenly saw it differently. The room felt slightly different after. Chances are someone asked you something, or something you read posed a question you couldn't shake loose. The shift didn't come from the outside in, it came from inside out. The question was just the door. Most people who say they've changed someone's mind have only won an argument. The other person went quiet, they stopped pushing back. But quiet isn't the same as changed. It might be exhaustion, it might be politeness. Underneath, the original belief is sitting there, intact, waiting for the pressure to lift. Real change moves differently. It's slower. It feels, to the person going through it, like they thought of something, not like they were told something. Now, here's where this becomes something you need to protect yourself with. Because once you understand how questions work, you also start to notice when they're being used on you, not to open your thinking, but to steer it. There's a difference between a question that invites you to examine something and a question designed to funnel you toward a predetermined answer. The first kind has space in it. The person asking genuinely doesn't know where you'll land. The second kind is narrow. The path is already built. Each question is a step on a staircase someone else constructed, and at the bottom, there's a conclusion waiting that was never really yours to make. Recognize the architecture. When someone's questions feel like a corridor rather than a field, slow down. The giveaway is how it feels to answer. A genuine question leaves you free to say something unexpected, to land somewhere that surprises even you. A steering question makes you feel slightly off if you don't answer in the expected direction, like the question already knows what you're supposed to say. When you feel that, you're not being invited to think, you're being walked somewhere. You're allowed to stop walking. Back to Socrates. The reason his method is ethical, in a way that most persuasion isn't, is precisely this. It leaves the other person's autonomy intact. You haven't pushed them. You haven't filled the space with your conclusion. You've asked them to look at what they already believe and follow it honestly. If they follow it and still disagree with you, then either your question wasn't good enough or they've seen something you haven't. That's real thinking. That's two minds in actual contact rather than two positions in a standoff. So what does this look like in an ordinary conversation? Not a Socratic dialogue in a marble marketplace. A Tuesday afternoon, a kitchen, someone you love who sees something differently than you do. You stop presenting your case. You get curious about theirs, genuinely curious. You ask what they're most certain of. You ask what they'd need to see to think differently. You ask what it would cost them if they were wrong, not to trap them, because you actually want to know. And then something shifts. Not always, not guaranteed, but more often than it ever did when you were stacking arguments, because you stopped trying to move them. You started helping them move themselves. There's a kind of relief in that realization. You've been carrying the weight of other people's conclusions for them, trying to hand them over, and they keep not taking them. You don't have to do that. You were never built to. The heaviest thing you can put down in a conversation is the job of convincing. Put it down. Replace it with one honest question and see what happens when someone else picks up the thinking for themselves. Tonight, before your next hard conversation, ask yourself one thing first. What question could I ask that would invite them to look at this themselves? Not lead them, invite them. The name for what you're doing, if you do it well, is the Socratic method. The reason it has lasted 2,400 years isn't that it's clever, it's that it's true to how minds actually open. Not from the outside, from within. You already knew that, you just hadn't found the words for it yet. And now you have them.